our important role of passing on an America whose land, water, and air are clean, healthy, productive, beautiful, and accessible for all to enjoy. I strongly urge my colleagues to vote no on this terrible, terrible bill. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin rise?
I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as one of the former co-chairs and leaders of the Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus, the largest bipartisan bicameral caucus in this Congress, I reluctantly rise in strong opposition to this Interior Appropriation Bill. Mr. Chairman, this bill falls short on so many different levels, especially our responsibility to future generations to be good stewards of the public land, the vital natural resources, the wildlife that we have within our borders. But don't take my word for it, Mr. Chairman. We've had a tradition in this place for many years of having strong bipartisan support for reasonable, sensible land and water conservation programs. That's why earlier this month, a coalition of over 640 outdoor recreation entities sent a letter to each of our offices, including the congressional leadership, expressing their deep concern and dismay over the funding cuts proposed in this appropriation bill. This letter was signed by entities such as the Boone and Crockett Club, the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, Ducks Unlimited, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, the National Wild Turkey Foundation, Teddy Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, the Trout Unlimited, and it was also signed by the President of the Wilderness Society, Bill Meadows, and the board member of the Civil War Trust, John Now. I'd like to read that letter at this time. It reads, and I quote, "We are a broad coalition of organizations representing millions of members with very diverse political backgrounds and areas of interest, united behind a shared belief that natural resource conservation, outdoor recreation, and historic preservation and investments in them are vital to the future of our great nation. Like you, we are concerned about our nation's fiscal health. The nation faces unsustainable future fiscal deficits, which must be addressed. As part of the overall solution to our deficit challenges, we know that conservation, recreation, and historic preservation programs will not and should not be exempted from scrutiny. We are willing to engage in a process to find further savings in spending and review the economic and budgetary benefits of critical conservation, outdoor recreation, and historic preservation programs. The federal budget cannot and should not be balanced disproportionately on the backs of conservation, outdoor recreation, and preservation. Doing so will impose on future generations whose well-being depends on the conservation and preservation of our common natural and historic resources. As a diverse community of taxpayers and voters, we care about natural resource conservation, outdoor recreation, and historic preservation. We stand ready to work with you on a serious effort to address our nation's economic and fiscal challenges as they relate to investments in and tough choices about the programs we care about. We urge this Congress to address the federal deficit while still investing in critical conservation, recreation, and historic preservation programs in 2012." End quote. Mr. Chairman, I would at this time ask unanimous consent to have the record have this letter inserted in the record during general leave at the appropriate time.
Well, that will be covered by the general.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, these groups, and as many of us realize too, this is more than just being good stewards of the land and doing right by future generations. Investment in these vital programs are crucial for economic development and job creation in this country. The Outdoor Industry Foundation has issued a survey from year to year showing the economic impact of many of these conservation programs on outdoor recreation activities. They found that outdoor recreation contributes $730 billion annually to the U.S. economy, supports 6.5 million private sector jobs, 1 out of every 20 jobs, and stimulates 8% of consumer spending. In Wisconsin alone, my home state, hunting and fishing alone supports 57,000 jobs, $400 million in state revenue. Sportsmen spend $3.1 billion annually, which helps stimulate the Wisconsin economy and other states. Mr. Chairman, the irony in all this is that these organizations and these programs have been giving at the idol of deficit reduction for some time. In fact, over the last 30 years, Americans' investment in parks, wildlife, clean water, clean air has fallen from 1.7% of overall federal budget to less than 0.6%. So throughout the years, there's been a continual reduction in funding for these programs. The irony is that for many of these programs, for every public dollar used, it's leveraged to draw in more private sector dollars. This, too, will be in great jeopardy with the dismantling of these programs. These aren't programs that you can just turn in off with a spigot. You need a continuity of care to keep them going. And with funding reductions of this magnitude, it will be difficult, if not impossible, to maintain that continuity of care, whether it's to clean water, clean air, to wildlife preservation and enhancement. All of these programs are under a direct assault with this Interior Appropriation Bill. With the Land and Water Conservation Fund, an 80% proposed cut. And the irony with this program is it's funded by oil royalties. It's been a grand bargain that's been used in the past to allow development of oil on public lands. I encourage my colleagues to vote no on this appropriation bill. We can do better than this. We have to do better. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey rise? The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's an unfortunate time-honored tradition in the House of people coming to the floor and objecting to reductions in spending with heartfelt arguments as to why the spending is necessary and never offering any suggestions about where the money might be made up instead. And that, frankly, is one of the reasons that we have the huge deficits and debts that we do. So I want to break with that tradition and talk to you about a spending reduction I have a great concern about, and then talk about how we might make it up instead. There is not a person in this House who's not been touched in some way by cancer in their family and someone they love, some friend. I don't think there's anybody here that hasn't had the heartbreak of dealing with malignancy in their family. And let me say, Mr. Chairman, from the outset, I don't think there is a member of this House that doesn't want to do everything he or she could to deal with solving that problem. There is not a member of this place, Republican or Democrat, who's indifferent to the problem of fighting cancer. Now, cancer comes from a lot of things. It's genetic, it's hereditary, it comes from foods, but a lot of it comes from the environment. It comes from water. If the water we drink or we cook with or we bathe in is not clean, it can sometimes be the trigger that triggers the dread disease of cancer for someone that we care about. So a long time ago, when this was discovered in the 1960s, there was a bipartisan agreement to try to do something to clean the water of this country and keep it clean. And it was upheld by presidents like Ronald Reagan and George Bush, Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, many others, Republicans and Democrats in control of Congress. That's why I have to look at the bill before us today and just be astonished by the fact that the Clean Water Fund is cut by 55%. I'll say this again. The fund that has been set up to protect the clean water of our country, that is consumed by Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, cut by 55%. The amount of that cut is about $833 million, below the amount of money that we spent last year, about $833 million. Now, usually people stop there, but I want to talk about where we should get the money instead. $833 million is less than 3 days worth of spending in Iraq and Afghanistan. How about that? We will spend more than $833 million in the next 3 days in Kabul and Baghdad, in part to help build clean water systems there, in part to help create jobs there. I just think that's inexcusable, that we find ourselves in a position where we're spending in 2 or 3 days in Iraq and Afghanistan what we could spend to eliminate this cut and provide clean drinking water for the people of our country. The amount of subsidies we're going to give oil companies. The oil companies made record profits in 2010. They made about $60 billion in profits, if I'm not mistaken, maybe more, $77 billion actually, in profits last year. We'll spend 6 times as much of this cut in the Clean Drinking Water Fund to give money away to those oil companies this year. These are people who made $77 billion in profits last year, whose stocks are off the charts, who are paying their CEOs hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation. And we're going to give them about $7 billion from the wallets of the people of this country this year. That's 6 times the amount of this cut in the Clean Drinking Water Fund. The Clean Water Fund, excuse me. So look, I understand if you come to the floor, you've got the responsibility of saying, well, if you don't want to cut this, you've got the responsibility to say, well, where else should we get it from? I think that's a reasonable rule under which to live. So, ladies and gentlemen of the House, my proposal would be this. Let's not reduce the Clean Water Fund by 55%. Let's not say to cities and villages and towns and states and Indian tribes around our country that the money that we lend to them, we don't give it to them, most of the time it's a loan, to help build clean water systems that bring clean water to our kitchens and our homes and our places of worship and work, hospitals. Let's not reduce that. Instead, let's take 2.5 days of what we're going to spend in Iraq and Afghanistan and put it there. Let's take 1/6 of the money we're going to hand to the oil companies and put it there. This is something we shouldn't do. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlelady from California rise? Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I rise to strike the requisite number of words and rise in strong opposition to H.R. 2485, the Interior Appropriations Bill. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, I want to thank Ranking Member Moran and our full committee Ranking Member Congressman Dix for leading the fight every step of the way against this Republican assault on the environment. Sadly, Mr. Chair, this bill is nothing more than a vehicle for bigger profits for big oil and other special interest polluters. This bill and all it contains destroys critical environmental standards established to protect the public's health. By attacking more than 40 extremely dangerous policy riders, the Republicans take direct aim on the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the environment in which we live. This terrible legislation guts the budgets of key federal agencies charged with protecting our citizens and our national resources. It terminates air quality standards as well as land and water conservation funding that will impact all communities in our country. But these cuts will hit my home state of California especially hard. Mr. Chair, I'm proud to serve as a representative of California's 9th Congressional District, which has long been at the forefront of the environmental movement, including working on critical issues of climate change as well as fighting for renewable energy, green jobs, and environmental justice. This bill undermines the Clean Air Act's ability to crack down on air pollution, threatening the quality of life for our children, our families, our communities, including my constituents in the East Bay, many of whom suffer unfairly from poor air quality. Now let me just tell you this story, this personal story. Many of my childhood friends, mind you, who grew up with me in my neighborhood, a polluted neighborhood in El Paso, Texas, many of them were dead, mind you, before they turned 55 years of age. Or many of them who are still alive have chronic or debilitating diseases. And these tragedies can be directly related to environmental degradation of the neighborhoods in which I lived and grew up in El Paso, Texas. Also, let me just say, this bill is unjust because it really does refuse to fund EPA at a level where there can be some justice in terms of the overall programs of the Environmental Administration, where it can implement its core mission of protecting human health and the environment. This means that more women and more children and more people facing or living in poverty and more communities of color are bearing the brunt once again of pollution, environmental degradation, and climate change. Sadly, this is in line with the Republican plan to balance the budget on the backs of the poor. Rather than Republicans taking actions to create jobs, This bill guts funding to create jobs, especially green jobs. Rather than the Republicans taking action to protect our nation's clean water supply and open spaces, this bill takes us back to dirty water and closed parks. Rather than taking action to ensure that people across this country can trust our government, and they want to trust us, to protect the water that they drink and the air that they breathe, this bill rolls back the standards and protections aimed at protecting public health. Mr. Chairman, as a person of faith, I believe that there is a moral and ethical responsibility to protect the natural resources provided by our Creator. This measure before us prohibits us from acting on that very serious and important responsibility. How can we here make decisions that knowingly harm people? How can we make decisions that pollute our environment? How can we make these crass decisions as members of Congress that will increase health hazards leading to diseases such as cancer? People elect us because they trust us to make decisions that protect and enhance their quality of life. They want us to preserve our beautiful planet. Future generations are counting on us. This bill really does let them down. We need to defeat this horribly destructive bill and move quickly to matters that American people expect us to address, like to create jobs, to raise our debt ceiling, and to protect the public health. Thank you, and I yield the balance of my time.
The gentlelady yields back. Who seeks recognition? For what purpose does the gentlelady from Illinois rise?
To strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While our nation stumbles toward a potential default, the Republican Party is wasting our time with consideration of a bill that will not move through the Senate and which the President has already threatened to veto. But even though this legislation is a futile effort, it does clearly articulate the philosophy of the Republicans in this House of Representatives. This is a bill that really makes one shake one's head. It is an astonishing effort to destroy hard-won, long-standing, and successful and popular laws. It cuts valuable health and environmental programs, it caps the responsibility of corporate polluters, and balances minimal cost savings on the back of our most precious natural resources. H.R. 2584, the funding bill for the Department of the Interior and environmental agencies, completely guts funding for public lands and public health programs that the American people care about and desperately need. A 64% cut to the state and tribal wildlife grants program and a 95% cut to the cooperative endangered species conservation funds mean we can expect a rapid increase in endangered and extinct species on federal and non-federal lands alike. An 80% reduction in the Land and Water Conservation Fund means we should not expect adequate maintenance of landmarks, including Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, Yellowstone National Park, or California's Big Sur Coast. A 40% cut to the National Landscape Conservation System means 27 million acres of national monuments, wilderness areas, scenic rivers, and other treasures will be inadequately protected. A 60% cut to the North American Wetland Conservation Act means our birds and fish and wildlife resources will lose protections that keep these populations viable. A 55% reduction to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund means less protection for water quality improvement projects in the United States. And a prohibition of funding for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative means my home state of Illinois and the Great Lake, Michigan will lose millions of dollars in federal assistance to promote good jobs and clean drinking water for millions of our citizens. And while this bill severely cuts these and other priorities, it provides handouts to corporate polluters in the form of policy riders. These riders would threaten enforcement of public health and environmental laws which have protected our country for decades. One rider reverses a moratorium on uranium mining on the rim of the Grand Canyon and would turn one of our nation's most iconic landmarks into an eyesore. Another extends loopholes in the Clean Water Act, jeopardizing drinking water for 117 million Americans. And many others weaken the Clean Air Act and limit regulations against toxic air pollution, which saved an estimated 160,000 lives just last year. The Clean Air and Clean Water Act have protected American health and welfare for 40 years and have been the catalyst for green energy investment and job creation. More than 80% of the American people believe the EPA should not be prevented from performing its duties. And the Gallup poll reports that 4 out of 5 Americans are personally concerned about the water they drink, as well they should. And although this legislation is dead on arrival at the White House, it poses a fundamental debate about the type of country we want to hand over to our children and grandchildren. Do we want to be a nation that oversees the disappearance of animal populations and wetlands and national parks because we aren't willing to ask for 1 penny more from millionaires and billionaires? Do we want to be a nation that turns away from water treatment and infrastructure in the hopes that no one will notice? Do we want to be a nation that values the profits of corporate polluters over the health of children? The Republican majority has clearly stated its position. I oppose this bill. The funding cuts and destructive policy riders that riddle this bill turn back the clock on vital environmental and health policies. We owe it to our children and grandchildren to uphold our commitment to clean air, clean water, and preserved natural resources. This weekend, my granddaughter who celebrated her 10th birthday, had her party on Lake Michigan and enjoyed the precious clean water. I urge my colleagues to vote against this attack on our American resources and our values.
The gentlelady's time has expired. For what purpose, the gentleman from California rise?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for recognizing me. Let's strike the last word.
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I've been listening from afar to this discussion on the floor, which is so fascinating. The former majority, wanting so desperately to become the majority again, is suggesting that by way of this bill we're taking the heart out of America's infrastructure program. The fact is that in just recent years, the former majority increased spending in all these categories at levels that would almost startle the people if they could ever see the detailed facts. The fact that we are not increasing spending to their wish lists ahead some way becomes a cut in their mind's eye. When we're faced with the reality that the covered wagon that took us to California from the east is about to go over the cliff of bankruptcy if we don't do something about spending. This same voice or series of voices currently is doing battle over the debt limitation. And they're suggesting that we're holding this up because of some loopholes in taxes and otherwise for the so-called rich. Conversations taking place by many of the rich of the House indeed reflects the reality that what they really want is more spending, more funding for these programs, while we're attempting to make an effort to cut back spending and cut the impact of government in the private sector. These same voices will not give up until they have an opportunity for more taxes. So one of the two parties who are having this discussion want more spending in government programs, want more taxes. The other side of this discussion would suggest we ought to cut back spending, make sense out of our budget, and indeed recognize that the private sector keeping some money in their jeans, investing in the private sector, is really the way to create jobs. And so with that, it's fascinating to watch this discussion. I'll be glad to come back 3 or 4 more times and have this discussion, Mr. Chairman. But in the meantime, I certainly would hope more people would talk about what they really know about the environment or really know about the Interior Bill rather than the rhetoric that's a part of next year's campaign.
Yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
To strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
What a fortuitous moment to have the opportunity to follow my colleague from California. Indeed, I do know something about the Interior budget. I was the Deputy Secretary at the Department of Interior, and I know full good and well what the Department of Interior means to America. Early this morning, I left Sacramento. My mind was very much on the debate you just suggested. What are we going to do about the deficit? But it didn't take long as I sat by the window, as I moved over the Sierra Nevada mountains, into the Nevada, and then across to the Rockies and across this entire nation. For the most of the way, it was rather clear. We have an awesome, unbelievably beautiful country, and we're the strongest nation in the world, and we have great economic strength. This bill, however, would take this great nation, the great beauty, the incredible people of America, and put them at risk, and put this nation's extraordinary beauty and resources at risk. That's what this is about. This isn't going to solve the budget deficit one way or the other. This is a minuscule part of the overall federal budget. Important because it is about this nation's physical and human health. We're talking about the Environmental Protection Agency. This bill, as written, would bring to the people of America poison. It is the poisoning of our rivers and our air. Use whatever words you want about cleanup, use the nice words, but we're talking about poisoning the rivers and the air of America. That's what this bill does. When you take the Environmental Protection Agency and you take away its ability to protect us, then you are allowing poisons to be in our water and in our air and in our land. You look at this and you're talking about, I will not yield, you can have your time later. You look at this bill and you're talking about the extraordinary physical nature of America. Do you want the great mountains of the Appalachians to be flattened so you can have more coal to burn it and then foul the atmosphere? That's what this bill does. Do you want to take away the ability of this nation to protect your precious Mojave Desert? That's what this bill does. Do you want to allow those who would destroy by grabbing the resources of this nation without even bothering to pay a decent royalty? That's what this bill does, whether it's the oil in the Gulf or the copper in a new mine in Arizona. I've listened to the Republican bills day after day on this floor and in committee, and they would strip away the protections that Americans want for their health and for their land. That's not what we should be doing. You want to know where the money is? My colleague from New Jersey said it very well. It's in Afghanistan and it's in Baghdad. We're building the bridges, we're cleaning the rivers, we're providing the water, the electrical systems there to the tune of $150 billion a year. Bring our troops home. Bring our money back to America. Build America. Rebuild America. There's the answer. Not in this way will you ever solve the deficit. And by the way, this bill lays off people, 15,000 people at the EPA alone. This bill will not build infrastructure. This bill will take away the infrastructure for our sanitation systems, for our water systems. That's what this bill does. My colleague from California knows full good and well what's intended here. It's to give our resources to the polluters. It's to foul our air. It's to remove the ability of the people of America, not some government in Washington, but the people of America have for the last 40 years demanded clean water, that their resources be protected, that the commons be protected. It is the people of America that want a future that's good for their children, that want a future that's viable, that want a future that does not have poisoned water and air. That's what the people of America want. This bill goes exactly the wrong direction. I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Who seeks recognition? Gentleman from North Carolina, recognized. For what purpose does he rise?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to fiscal 2012 Interior and Environment Appropriations Bill. I do want to start on a positive note. The bill would restore the President's proposed cuts to mitigation fish hatcheries. That's a good thing. It would increase funding for the Indian Health Service, and it would largely maintain funding for the National Park Service operations and the Smithsonian. So I commend the subcommittee for those decisions. But I'm afraid the list of positive things is pretty short. And so I want to, in the time I have, list some of the devastating cuts that this bill includes. And while our friend from California has suggested that these really aren't deep cuts, I believe the content of this bill belies that notion. The bill before us picks up where H.R. 1 left off last spring, making numerous and deep cuts to the programs that protect our air, water, public lands, and wildlife. Here are just a couple of the most egregious cuts in this bill. First, to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. This funds the acquisition of public lands so they're protected from development and can be employed by future generations, enjoyed by future generations. The Land and Water Conservation Fund has a dedicated revenue stream from offshore drilling royalties. It takes nothing from the general fund. And yet, this bill would cut Land and Water Conservation Fund funding by 80%, the lowest level of funding for the program in 45 years. It threatens completion of the acquisition of the Rocky Fork Tract in East Tennessee and several treasures in North Carolina that need protection. Every member of this body should ask, how many acquisition projects would this halt in my state? There is no reassuring answer. Secondly, the Environmental Protection Agency. The bill continues the Republican majority's assault on the EPA. After imposing a 16% cut in the current fiscal year, the majority is now proposing a further 18% reduction in the agency's budget. That would push agency staffing to 1991 levels. The goal of a cut so massive is plain and simple, to ensure that EPA doesn't have the resources it needs to fulfill its core mission. And that mission includes life-saving and life-enhancing research, largely based in my district at Research Triangle Park. Third, the Clean Water and Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. The SRFs provide funding directly to the states to fund water infrastructure projects that enable communities to better manage wastewater and polluted runoff and to protect clean and safe drinking water. This provides one of the most basic services taxpayers expect, clean water. And yet this bill would cut funding for these two programs by nearly $1 billion combined. Given how essential water supply is to economic growth, this is ironic at this particular time as our communities struggle to retain and regain jobs. I suggest to colleagues, ask your state and local governments how they're going to make up this difference. Mr. Chairman, as if these cuts weren't bad enough, the majority has loaded this bill with legislative policy riders and funding limitations that will roll back 40 years of progress towards clean air and clean water. These anti-environmental riders have no place in an appropriations bill. They will not save the country a penny, and they will cost tens of thousands of lives. They will expose our children, families, and communities to unnecessary illnesses, and they will degrade our irreplaceable natural resources. The majority claims that these cuts are needed to demonstrate fiscal discipline. But, Mr. Chairman, this book is a textbook case in false economies. In gutting critical environmental protection programs, it piles up frightful economic and human costs for the future. Our constituents and our environment, today and in future generations, deserve better than what this bill is offering. I urge my colleagues to oppose this short-sighted appropriations bill. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the chair. Well, congratulations. This is probably the most radical anti-environment bill that the House of Representatives ever considered. It cuts open space funding to the lowest level in a half a century. It opens the Grand Canyon to uranium mining. It denies the existence of climate change and eliminates funding for federal agencies to monitor and adapt to it. It contains more than 3 dozen anti-environment policy riders that eviscerate the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, and other landmark environmental statutes. The bill desecrates the legacy of Teddy Roosevelt and a long line of bipartisan conservation leaders, while it also endangers public health. The Republican majority claims to be concerned about spending, but this reckless bill would impose billions of dollars, Mr. Chairman, of health care costs on Americans by increasing the incidence of asthma, emphysema, heart attacks, and even premature death. This anti-environmental bill will increase health care costs by up to $539 billion, according to the Congressional Research Service. Since Medicare, Medicaid, and CHIP are responsible for 33.9% of total health care costs, this Republican bill will cost taxpayers some $179 billion more. In addition, it will cause more than 60,000 premature deaths, 20 million lost days of work, and 36,800 additional heart attacks in America. This bill eliminates funding for critical land conservation priorities, completely defunding the Forest Legacy Program. It defunds the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Program. It blocks Environmental Protection Agency implementation of public health standards for particulate, lead, greenhouse gas, and other pollutants. It allows the unregulated destruction of one of America's 2 most biodiverse regions, southern Appalachia, by repealing Clean Water Act standards to protect streams from mountaintop removal. It imperils the cleanliness of public drinking water by allowing unregulated disposal of coal, waste, and pesticides, and casts into regulatory purgatory developers and others seeking clarity of Clean Water Act regulations. Republican majority seems to be living in an alternative reality. As Americans face unprecedented drought in the Southwest, record floods in the Mississippi Basin, record heat here in eastern and Midwestern cities, accelerating sea level rises, and other symptoms of global warming, this bill blocks funding even to monitor global warming. Not only do Republicans deny the existence of global warming, apparently, they have even blocked funding to monitor its impacts. This reckless policy rider doesn't just endanger polar bears, coral reefs, and countless other species and ecosystems. It endangers American infrastructure, from the Norfolk Naval Base to the Jefferson Memorial. It endangers American public health by increasing smog, pollution, and heat-related deaths, as we've seen from the recent heat wave that swept across the east and Midwest United States, setting record temperatures here in Washington, D.C., Newark, and other cities across the eastern seaboard. I urge my colleagues to reject this reckless legislation that defunds critical public lands programs, eviscerates 40 years of bipartisan environmental standards, and desecrates the memory of Teddy Roosevelt. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Purpose, does the gentleman from Colorado rise?
Make the requisite number of words.
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, our country is facing an incredibly important moment as critical decisions need to be made regarding the national debt and our long-term deficit and how to constrain spending. Members on both sides of this aisle recognize the reality that we need to restore fiscal responsibility in our budget. However, Mr. Speaker, in times of national importance, we need to stay focused on what our country needs and what's best for the American people, and avoid the temptation to play politics as this bill does. Far too much has been carried out by the majority party under the guise of cost-cutting in the deficit, when it's actually policy-making to implement a hard-right, radical, anti-environmental agenda which can actually cost more money in both the short, medium, and long term. Mr. Speaker, the cuts proposed by the majority in this bill have nothing to do with fiscal responsibility. They have everything to do with implementing radical, anti-environmental ideology. The bill makes sweeping cuts to critical programs that protect the public's health, reduce our expenditures for health care, protect our environment, and keep industry from running over the public and consumer rights. And yet at the same time it does that, Mr. Speaker, this bill actually increases spending on programs that are little more than handouts and subsidies to oil and gas companies and mining companies. In particular, one that the government waste watchdog group Taxpayers for Common Sense has called, quote, the granddaddy of federal subsidies, end quote. This isn't about saving taxpayer money in this bill. It's about slashing environmental protections while giving handouts and subsidizing the dirtiest, most influential industries. There's more pork in this bill than in an Iowa hog lot. This is supposed to be a spending bill that attempts to balance various budget priorities against one another. It's not supposed to be a grab bag of provisions demanded by the nation's worst polluters, energy companies, and other special interests who receive handouts under this bill. Yet while this bill would do away with the Clean Water Act, putting the rest of us in danger because mountaintop coal mining companies and factory farms want it, and while this bill does away with key provisions of the Clean Air Act, this bill also ensures that there will be more toxic mercury, arsenic, and lead in our air and put our children's health at risk. States would be blocked from moving ahead with their own clean car standards, threatening the health of America's children, elderly citizens, and other vulnerable populations by blocking EPA's ability to limit dangerous carbon pollution from power plants and stationary sources. This bill also expedites uranium mining in the Grand Canyon, gives special legal exemption to grazing on public lands, eliminates endangered species protections for animals from bighorn sheep to gray wolves and more, and yet it increases spending for the 1879 mining law and other elements that actually threaten to endanger our environment and are an additional handout to big oil. Mr. Speaker, this bill isn't a serious funding proposal. It's a polluter's wish list of subsidies, handout, and pork. The majority can call it what they will, but don't say that this bill serves the cause of cost-cutting while it lards up programs that are little more than a subsidy to wealthy mining and drilling interests. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Richmond of Louisiana. Page 2, line 20, after the dollar amount, insert decreased by $6 million. Page 19, line 20, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $5 million.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman will be recognized for 5 minutes, and a person opposed will be, 5 minutes. The gentleman will be recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, what this amendment does is increases the funding for our Bureau of Oceans and Energy Management, Regulation, and Enforcement by $5 million. And what it would do is it would allow BURMER to quicken the pace of permit approval and in turn promote the rate of oil and gas investment in the Gulf region. To accomplish this investment, we will reduce the Rangeland Management Fund by $6 million, which still leaves that fund above its fiscal year 2011 funding levels. Now, Mr. Chairman, let me point out to you why this is the wise thing to do. In response to the Deepwater Horizon explosion and the resulting oil spill last year, in May, the administration issued a temporary moratorium halting the permits of oil and gas production on the outer continental shelf. The moratorium was lifted in October of last year, but since then the issuance of permits have been slow. President Obama directed BURMER to reorganize itself into two independent groups, one that handles revenue from oil and gas leasing and the other that regulates the oil and gas industry. This is all a change that most of us believe is necessary and wise. However, the speed of permitting activity has not returned to pre-Deepwater Horizon levels. There's a significant and growing backlog of drilling plans pending approval. The number of pending deepwater exploration and development plans has increased by more than 250%. This is up from a historical average of 18 plans pending to now nearly 65 pending approval. Also, there's a drastic decline in drilling permit approvals. Deepwater exploration and development drilling permit approvals have also declined by approximately 80%, down from an average of nearly 160 per year to a pace of only 30 per year. Shallow water exploration and development drilling permits approvals have also dropped by nearly 50% from an average of 390 per year to a pace of fewer than 180 a year. Mr. Chairman, I would tell you that there was a recent study that showed that increasing the pace of permitting and subsequently the pace and scale of investment in the Gulf would create 230,000 domestic jobs in 2012, as well as more than $44 billion of U.S. gross domestic product. And I just want to harp on that number for a second, Mr. Chairman, because as we have been here for the 112th Congress, the American people have been demanding that we use the money we have efficiently so that we can invest in the American people and get a return on our investment. So here we're asking the American people for $5 million and asking our colleagues on the other side of the aisle who earlier this year proposed legislation that was purported to increase drilling and to lower gas prices. Well, now they have the opportunity to take $5 million, invest it in Beaumere, and have the opportunity to create 230,000 jobs. There are 14.1 million people in this country, Mr. Chairman, who are actively seeking employment who can't find it. Here we have a chance to help 230,000 of them in fiscal year 2012 alone, and we have the ability to increase our gross domestic product by $44 million. Mr. Chairman, I think that's what the American people are demanding. They want us to use our money wisely. That's what this amendment does, and I would just ask my colleagues on both sides of the aisles to support this. It's a job creation amendment, and I would just ask for the support, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio rise?
To strike the last word in opposition to the amendment.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in opposition to this amendment. The amendment would take $6 million from BLM's lands and resources and transfer it to Beaumere. The BLM's management account has already been cut $43.5 million below fiscal year 11, $15.5 million below the President's request. This fund allows the BLM to take care of more than 245 million surface acres, 700 million subsurface acres. Further cuts to this account would not be warranted. I want to commend the gentleman for the location where he wants to send the money. Have no big opposition to the increase in the Beaumere spending, but we did the best we could to balance this particular piece of legislation. Beaumere has already been increased by $37 million above fiscal year 2011. It's also been increased significantly in several continuing resolutions. Therefore, because of the location of the offset, urge our colleagues to oppose the amendment. Yield back.
Yields back. Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana rise?
No, he's got another question on the First Amendment also.
Sorry. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Louisiana. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, on that one, I would like a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Louisiana will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will designate the amendment. Report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Richmond of Louisiana, page 2, line 20, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $10,617,000. Page 10, line 21, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $10,617,000.
Gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, again I rise to talk about what I consider to be wise investments into the future and the stability of this great country. For the last 21 years, the North American Wetlands Conservation Act has created jobs and served an important investment tool in our nation's economy and for wetlands in every single state. NACA is responsible for restoring over 26 million acres of wetlands, equivalent to the size of the state of Ohio. Not only did it restore over 26 million acres, it also created nearly 7,500 jobs annually and hundreds of millions in worker earnings every year. If we look at the fiscal year 2011 appropriations with $37.5 million, down from $47.6 million in fiscal year 2010. This bill allocates only $20 million for fiscal year 12, a cut of 47% from fiscal year 11 levels and 58% from fiscal year 10-11. Here's the important part, Mr. Chairman. The law requires that each federal dollar put into the program be matched by $1 in non-federal funds. Because the competition for these dollars is so great, on average, each federal dollar is matched 3-to-1. Mr. Chairman, I think that over and over again I keep saying that the American people are looking for us to spend money in this great country where we get a return on our investment. Now we have another program where for every dollar we spend on this program, the American people get $3. That's what we should be doing in this great times, these great economic hardships. I'm asking my colleagues on the other side to look at where we're spending money in this bill and put money where we're going to get a good return on our investment. We're going to create jobs, and at the same time, we're going to preserve and restore our wetlands. That, Mr. Speaker, I think is the responsible thing to do, the wise thing to do, and I would encourage all of my colleagues to support it. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Illinois.
Gentleman may not yield box of times, but the gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the gentleman from Louisiana for yielding. I rise in support of the Richmond Amendment and in opposition to H.R. 2584, the Interior Environment Appropriations. And I do so because we cannot afford to make such drastic cuts to programs that benefit our nation's drinking water, deplete our air pollution standards, and reduce the beautiful landscape. For example, Illinois, where I live, the drinking water system faced a required investment of $13.5 billion over the next 20 years to replace aging facilities and comply with safe drinking regulations. In 2009, total federal funding for drinking water was less than $3 billion, which included a one-time $2 billion infusion of funds from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. Within Cook County, a large portion of my district, we can take only half an inch of rainwater before flooding takes place. This means severe sewer, water, and other contaminations flooding for both streets and homes. We cannot afford to reduce the health and safety of our citizens, and we cannot disrupt our environment. Again, I thank the gentleman for yielding and urge support of his amendment and urge that we defeat the overall appropriation bill, and I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, in closing, I would just say that this is another one of my small attempts to make an awful bill just a little bit better, and I would encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support the amendment. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio rise?
Strike the last word in opposition to the amendment.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the chair, and again I want to commend the gentleman from Louisiana for his amendment, but he again targets the account that we talked about in the last amendment, and that is the Bureau of Land Management's Land and Resources account, which, as I indicated during the last amendment, is already cut by $43.5 million below the fiscal year 11 level and $15.5 million below the President's request. In addition, this time the gentleman attempts to reach the Secretary's account and wants to reduce it by $6.8 million. That account, nobody likes to stand up for bureaucrats or the secretaries around here, but that account has already been cut by $33.5 million. Any further reductions could impede the new Office of Natural Resource Revenue, which collects the royalties for on and offshore oil and gas production, which I know is so important to our friends in the minority. For those reasons, again, not because of the place where the gentleman wants to put the additional funds, but where they come from, urge opposition to the amendment and yield back.
Yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Louisiana. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from New York rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Ms. Hochul of New York, page 3, line 3, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $4,452,000. Page 3, line 17, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $4,452,000.
Gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I believe my amendment is going to have appeal for both sides of the aisle. I've sat here and listened for some time about the need, particularly on the Republican side, that we need to be cutting our expenses. Well, my amendment does just that. My amendment would actually remove $4.4 million in spending increases and returns those very funds to deficit reduction. Those of us who also believe that the taxpayers should not hand over an additional $4.4 million just to help out the oil and gas industry would also support this amendment. What my amendment does is remove a $4.4 million increase in funding for oil and gas management. I just cannot stand here and support an additional increase in taxpayer spending at a time when the other parts of this budget are being slashed. And forgive me today if I don't have a lot of sympathy for big oil. Last quarter, Exxon posted $11.4 billion in profits alone. One quarter alone, Mr. Chairman. Royal Dutch Shell posted over $6 billion profit in one quarter alone. The additional $4.4 million added to help out the oil and gas companies to cover their permit application processing is literally pocket change for these big companies. We all live in tough economic times, and we came to Congress to make tough decisions. We need to cut spending, and that's why I ask my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support my amendment and support this funding and cut this spending increase. And my amendment, I assure you, does not address the merits of drilling whatsoever. This is simply an issue of fairness for the taxpayers. In times of government austerity and record profits for the oil companies, this amendment is simply a statement that these companies should pay the administrative expenses associated with processing their applications. Some people don't have a problem asking our seniors and our families and our small businesses to pay more during these tough times. Well, I do. I think it's fundamentally unfair to increase spending in their areas, but at the same time, we're hurting our seniors. Almost every other of this bill is being slashed, but the one that greases the skids for oil companies to get their approvals is being increased over last year's budget. Something is just not right with our national priorities, and I believe that reasonable Democrats and Republicans will agree. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Idaho rise?
Strike the last word in opposition to the amendment.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the gentlewoman's concern for the budget deficit and reducing the budget deficit, but I rise in opposition to this amendment. This amendment would limit the BLM from spending $4.5 million of offsetting collections for the processing of application of permits to drill. The BLM still collects the fees. They just won't be able to spend the funds. Mr. Chairman, this makes little sense, as those fees offset the cost to administer the oil and gas permitting program. In other words, these programs are paid for by the industry, not by taxpayers. In other words, the BLM will have the cost of these programs, but won't be allowed to spend the fees it's collected. So I have a problem with this amendment, and I would urge my colleagues to vote no. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from New York. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from New York will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, proceedings will now resume on those amendments on which further proceedings were postponed in the following order. An amendment by Mr. Moran of Virginia, an amendment by Mr. Huelskamp of Kansas, an amendment by Mr. Cleaver of Missouri, an amendment by Mr. Richmond of Louisiana, and an amendment by Ms. Hochul of New York. The chair will reduce to 5 minutes the time for any electronic vote after the first vote in the series. The unfinished business is the request for a recorded vote on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Moran, on which further proceedings were postponed and which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Moran of Virginia.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of a request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
The House is voting on amendments to a $27.5 billion spending bill for the Interior Department, the U.S. Forest Service, and the EPA. A story in Congressional Quarterly says that Representative James Moran of Virginia, the top Democrat on the Interior Environment Appropriations Subcommittee, predicts a vigorous fight against some 28 policy writers they say are in the spending bill. Many of those policy writers are aimed at restricting the EPA's regulatory authority, including provisions that would restrict the EPA's authority to regulate greenhouse gas emissions and mountaintop mining, and limit the power of states to enforce environmental laws. So now, after another day of briefings about the different ways to increase the debt ceiling and cut federal spending, President Obama will give a televised address on the debt caucus tonight. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll have live coverage on C-SPAN 2 or here on C-SPAN if the House is out. During these votes, we'll hear briefings from Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and House Speaker John Boehner outlining new plans unveiled today to address the debt ceiling and spending issue. Here's a reporter with an update. Michael Crittenden of Dow Jones Newswires, how do the plans offered by House Speaker Boehner and Majority Leader Reid compare?
Well, you sort of have two different approaches, and obviously this is probably not the last we've heard of new plans this week. I mean, the Boehner plans, the big thing takeaway is it's sort of a two-step process. First, there's some immediately cuts discretionary by $1.2 trillion over 10 years. That's the immediate step one. It would raise the debt ceiling through early next year. And then there's the second step where basically you have a commission of lawmakers to find an additional $1.8 trillion in spending cuts over the next 10 years. And if those cuts were subsequently approved, then the debt limit would be raised through the end of 2012, which is one of the requirements the White House has insisted on. Now, the Reid plan from Senate Majority Harry Reid, that's $2.7 trillion as opposed to the $3 trillion sort of envisioned under Boehner's plan. No revenue increases, and a lot of those savings would be from ending the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. About $1 trillion would, about $1.2 trillion in cuts to discretionary spending, and it would raise the debt ceiling through next year. So you sort of have these competing approaches.
So what are the prospects for getting those measures through?
I mean, it changes by the minute up here. The president already in the last 20 minutes has sort of changed the dynamic. He's giving a big address to the nation tonight, which, is bound to sort of change the thought process. House Republicans exiting a caucus meeting a little while ago said they were generally positive, but the big thing is details. I mean, even members of the House GOP caucus were leaving this meeting with leadership saying, it looks good, but we have to see the details of the Boehner plan. So, I mean, you have a lot of these sketches and outlines coming out, frameworks, and it's sort of like people are just trying to, put a piece here, put a piece there, trying to cobble something together on both sides of the aisle.
You mentioned the president, his address tonight. Where do the negotiations stand between Congress and the White House?
Well, I mean, the administration would tell you they're ongoing, and they're available to talk. It's interesting. Basically, every other day you sort of see a splintering of one negotiating group. At the end of last week, it really looked like Obama and Boehner were reaching an accord with Reid, sort of, and the Senate Democrats sort of left outside. Over the weekend, obviously, that changed again. So right now, I mean, it's really up in the air. I think that's one of the reasons the president's gonna give this address is sort of to lay out, and obviously he wants to, sort of take ownership as this sort of comes together.
Michael Crittenden of Dow Jones Newswires, I appreciate your time.
Happy to.
Again, we'll have the president speaking live from the East Room of the White House tonight at 9 Eastern on C-SPAN 2 or here on C-SPAN if the House is out. Now, here's Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid talking about a measure he's offering that would raise the debt ceiling through 2012 while cutting the deficit by $2.7 trillion over 10 years.
I've asked Senator Durbin and Senator Murray on airplanes, and we had to do this because of the memorial for the Chestnut, the moment of silence. So anyway, they're not here, but they're on their way. I spent all weekend trying to work something out with the Republicans. But instead of moving forward, we went backwards. Here's one example. You know, we are spending this year for the military about $700 billion. That's more money for the military than all the rest of the countries put together. So you would think in this debate that we have that the Pentagon could chip in a few bucks to cut some spending. Secretary Gates thinks they can. This weekend, the Republicans wanted to raise spending for the Pentagon. In the matter that we have on the floor, there's a cut for the Pentagon over the next 10 years. It's modest, something the Pentagon can live with. But over the weekend, lo and behold, they want more money for the Pentagon. So rather than trying to work with us on something as obvious as this, a way to save money, they went the wrong direction. What they're trying to do is force us to have the same debate on the exact same subject a few months from now. Republicans' short-term plan is a non-starter in the Senate and in the White House. And certainly the Democrats in the House agree wholeheartedly with us. A short-term agreement risks many of the same dire consequences that would be triggered by the default itself. As one market analyst said today, quote, "There is a significant risk of a downgrade with an agreement that ties further cuts to another vote only a few months down the road," close quote. It appears to me at this stage the Republicans are more interested in trying to embarrass the president than doing what's right for the country. So today we'll bring to the floor a $2.7 trillion reduction package that I hope can break the impasse and put the rest of the country at ease with the specter of this default. This proposal satisfies Democrats' core principles by protecting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and providing a long-term extension of the debt ceiling that the markets are looking for. The bill also meets Republicans' demands, two major demands. It contains no revenues, and the amount of the cuts meets the amount of the debt ceiling increases. They wanted a one-for-one, that's what we've given them. So now all the Republicans have to do is say yes. Unfortunately, the Republicans who used to run the Congress on the two Republican caucuses are being driven by the radical right wing that is so in tune with the Tea Party. They want their leaders to ignore the American people as they're doing. They want their leaders to ignore the business leaders like the Chamber of Commerce that they're ignoring. And even a majority of Republicans around this country want something to happen, and they're refusing to do that. They'd rather cut Social Security benefits than end taxpayer-funded giveaways for these billionaires and millionaires who have their corporate jets. We should not let these extremists dictate the outcome of this debate or the direction of our country. The time for ideological extremism should end. Now is the time for cooperation and consensus building, and that's what legislation is all about. They are to compromise, and they've got to break away from those extremists that seem to be running the Republican Party here in Washington. Senator Schumer?
Thank you, Senator Reid, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. It's unfortunate that the negotiations over the weekend weren't able to produce an agreement, despite the President's warning that he would veto any short-term plan. Speaker Boehner has refused to budge from his proposal. He is even going ahead with a vote in the House on this plan, though he knows it cannot become law. This is a dangerous waste of time, given that there are so few days between now and the deadline. Make no mistake about it. The two-step plan outlined by Speaker Boehner is a dodge. It kicks the can down the road. It resolves the debt ceiling only for the next few months, and after that, we'd be right back at square one all over again. As Senator Reid said yesterday, he can dress up his plan any way he wants. It is simply a one-step, short-term plan. Just look at how difficult this crisis has been to resolve after a year of negotiations. Does anyone think it would be a good idea to do this all over again in 6 months? The Speaker's approach is not only wrong, it's dangerous. It would leave a cloud of default hanging over our heads for the next several months, undermining confidence in our U.S. bond markets. Market analysts have rejected the Speaker's approach, saying it could bring about some of the same bad consequences as a default itself. It could even cause a credit rating downgrade. Christian Cooper, a currency trader, was quoted by Bloomberg News this morning saying, quote, "From the market's point of view, a two-stage plan is a non-starter. There is a significant risk of a downgrade with a deal that ties further cuts to another vote only a few months down the road, given the significant resistance to do the right thing now." Also, Mohammed El-Arian, one of the most respected followers of these markets, the CEO of PIMCO, expressed concern last night that, quote, "The political ground is being prepared for a short-term stop compromise," and warned that this could leave the U.S. debt rating, quote, "extremely exposed to a damaging downgrade." That's not Leader Reid's words or my words or some Democrats' words. These are the experts in the market. Even Republicans rejected a short-term increase in the debt ceiling as recently as last month. David Camp, the Republican chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, said, quote, "It doesn't give you certainty. Ideally, you'd like to get that settled and not have it continually a hanging over issue." Majority Leader Cantor said, quote, "If we can't make the tough decisions now, why would we be making those tough decisions later? I don't see how multiple votes on a debt ceiling increase can help get us to where we want to go." Senator Reid, myself, and most Democrats agree with Majority Leader Cantor on that point. Now, Republicans have apparently flip-flopped on this point, but a short-term deal is still a non-starter in the Senate. While Republicans continue pushing a plan that will never fly, the Senate plan offers real potential to finally break this impasse. It makes difficult choices for us. It includes $1.2 trillion in domestic discretionary programs, including defense. This is a serious belt-tightening that will have consequences for years to come. It includes significant savings on the mandatory side, and it includes savings from winding down the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. These are real savings that CBO scores at about $1 trillion. That's CBO scoring them at $1 trillion. Now, we know that some Republicans will quibble over these savings, but they have no leg to stand on. The wars are the second biggest policy driver of our deficits after the Bush tax cuts. If conducting the wars adds to our debt, it's undeniable that winding down the wars delivers savings. The administration tells us with the wind down they're putting into place in both Iraq and Afghanistan, they can prosecute the wars on about $630 billion over the next decade. The CBO, however, assumes $1.67 trillion in war funding through 2021. By adopting the administration's lower number, we can save over $1 trillion. We know the Republicans agree with this math because they included the exact same savings in the Ryan budget that passed the House. They never criticized such accounting then. It's hard to see how they could do so now. And lastly, Senator Reid's proposal allows for a joint committee that has the potential to achieve even deeper savings down the road. All in all, this is an offer that Republicans can't refuse. All of the cuts in Senator Reid's proposal have been supported at one point or another by Republicans. If they refuse this offer, it simply means they want to default for whatever reason. As Senator Reid said, it meets the requirements that they laid out. Dollar-for-dollar savings in the debt ceiling increase, no revenues, and cuts that they have supported. So ask yourself, the American people will be asking themselves, if they oppose this, why? Since it's everything they asked for. In his speech at the New York Economic Club, Speaker Boehner laid out the two main criteria. He said the amount of debt ceiling increase must be matched by the amount of spending cuts. Our proposal cuts even more than the amount of the debt ceiling increase. And second, Speaker Boehner said the tax increases must be off the table. Well, our proposal includes no revenue raisers whatever. This is a very hard decision for many on our side. Our side knows that any serious debt reduction plan must include revenues. But in the interest of preventing a default, we can have the fight on revenues later when we finally pursue the grand bargain that Speaker Boehner couldn't bring himself to accept from President Obama. We have offered them this plan. It's a tough choice. But for Democrats, we get an increase in the debt ceiling through 2012, and we succeed in preventing any benefit cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. So this proposal meets both sides' bottom lines. It's a good deal. At this point, there is no alternative other than default, and no basis for Republicans rejecting this proposal other than that they want a default. Thank you.
Yes.
Senator McConnell says that their plan, you were working with him on, and in fact, your staff and his staff was actually putting this in the legislative language over the weekend, and it all changed after you went down to the White House and the President said he couldn't live it out. Now, is Mr. McConnell lying to us about this, or were you in fact working with him on the very plan that you now say is unacceptable?
Well, of course, we in the legislative branch of government don't use harsh terms like you and the press use. So I don't use words like that, as you know. We had good negotiations over the weekend, but they could never get off of the 6-month deal. So this Leader Pelosi and I could never agree to less than for 6 months or less. So they could never get off that. And then, as we were negotiating, we were trying to come up with the 302s, which is a lot of lingo so we could do our appropriation bills, and this is something that Senator McConnell and I have tried to do. That charter was given to Leader Cantor, his staff, to come up with how we would arrive at those. And that's where they started going backwards, wanting more money for defense. So I would say to my friend Mitch McConnell, nice try, but don't blame this on the President. Blame it on them.
Those were Senate Democrats from earlier today. A reminder that we'll have the President live at 9 Eastern tonight on the debt talks on C-SPAN 2 or here on C-SPAN if the House is out. And now, House Speaker John Boehner with his debt limit plan. He talked about it at a briefing this afternoon.
Today we discussed with our members our two-step approach to cutting spending and avoiding an economic collapse as a result of a default. We believe it's a responsible, common-sense plan that meets our obligations to the American people and preserves the full faith and credit of the United States government. Listen, this legislation reflects a bipartisan negotiation over the weekend with our colleagues in the Senate. And as a result of this bipartisan negotiation, I would call this plan less than perfect. But it does ensure that the spending cuts will be greater than the hike in the debt limit. And secondly, there are no tax increases that are part of this plan. It's not cut, cap, and balance, but it is built on the principles of cut, cap, and balance that can pass the United States Senate as well as the United States House. Time's running short. I'm urging my House colleagues to support it, and I'm urging my Senate colleagues to support it as well. And I think it would be irresponsible for the President to veto such legislation because it is a common-sense plan and will help us avoid default. It's time to get serious about solving America's problems, and I believe our plan is a good step in the right direction.
The plan that we just introduced to our members is a well-thought-out and reasoned plan in which no side gets all that they want. We put out our plan as to what it is that we want, the cut, cap, and balance plan last week. This plan is not that. You know, the President said that he wants higher taxes and he wants a vote through the election. This plan doesn't have that in it. So it is a situation where no side gets all that they want. This is a responsible plan that addresses the urgency of trying to make sure we avoid default, which I know that we will, but then it sets in motion a process for real cuts so that we can live up to our obligation to the people that sent us here.
As you heard from the Speaker and the Leader, this plan is not perfect, but it shows a great contrast to what the President has laid out. The President continues to pick politics over people. His only concern when you listen to him is he brings up the election. We're more concerned about the policies and where this country is going. This plan today is one that the Speaker sat down with the other side of the aisle in the Senate. It's one that we've worked together that would make some current cuts, put some caps in for long term to put us on the right path. And it brings up the argument and where the Republicans are here wanting a balanced budget with the opportunity to have it. I think what has to transpire now is the President has to change his ways. The President has to start putting people before politics.
Well, it's July 25th and many things have not changed. One, it's over 800 days and the Senate under Harry Reid have yet to pass a budget. They've yet to pass a plan to deal with the debt crisis, much less one before August 2nd. The President of the United States has yet to put forward a plan and can only make it even more clear that what he's focused upon is the next election. What is also clear is that only House Republicans have passed a plan to deal with the debt ceiling. And although this is not, as the Speaker said, our version of cut, cap, and balance, what is also true is that House Republicans remain firmly committed to cutting spending now, capping spending in the future, and having the debate that has raged on since the dawn of the Republic, and that is to finally balance the budget. Because if we want jobs and hope and opportunity, we are going to have to cut and we're going to have to cap, and ultimately we will have to balance the budget.
Last week there was a poll that showed 2/3 of the American people supported cut, cap, and balance. And yet the Senate refused to listen to the American people and instead rejected cut, cap, and balance even without a debate. So now we find ourselves days before the August 2nd deadline, and we put today a new plan on the table. And it's a plan that we believe will address some of the political concerns of the Senate Democrats, but most importantly address the economic concerns of our country. We cannot continue to borrow and spend out of control. We have to change course, and we believe that this plan will do so. Borrowing and spending has failed, and if we continue down that course, it will be disastrous for our country. I urge my colleagues in the House to support this plan.
I'll take a couple of questions.
Senator Reid just outlined his plan, and he said that it contains that everything Republicans have asked for. It cuts spending by more than the rise of the increase, and it includes no new taxes. Would you support that plan, and if no, why not?
I believe that the plan is full of gimmicks. We're not making any real changes in the spending structure of our government, and it doesn't deal with the biggest drivers of our deficit and our debt, and that would be entitlement programs.
The Cut, Cap, and Balance group has come out against your plan. Do you think you can get a majority of Republicans to vote for it in the House?
I thank the Speaker for yielding.
The yeas are 100.
We have just laid it out to our members.